Welcome back to theCUBE, everyone. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE with Gemma Allen, our entire social team here. It's the Social Cube here. It's off the theCUBE podcast, remote from the MCP Summit in New York City. A moment of consequence as the Linux Foundation introduces a new executive director and a whole new constituted management team around the new Agentic AI Foundation. Looking like it's going to be a very high velocity adoption, 170 members already. Building on top of the success over a decade of the CNCF and Cloud Native. Cloud Native meets AI Native. This is what it means. We got a friend of theCUBE here, Stephen Chin, who's the VP of Developer Relations at Neo4j. Great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. And I'm excited to be at this inaugural kickoff event of the Agentic AI Foundation. I mean, this is a huge deal. Right, it's backed by Anthropic, it's backed by Block, and they're quickly ramping up and building the new standards, which are going to drive AI. And of course, Neo4j is one of the first companies who's joined and part of this momentum behind open source AI.
I love the Neo4j mission. You know, I'm a big fan of graph databases. I think that is a lingua franca of neural networks. Databases aren't the thing anymore. It's the system that it's in. And software category is changing over to systems. So deep tech is kind of replacing the software category.
Yeah.
Because software is everywhere. So you have now a system. So you combine the system revolution going next level with AI and cloud native, which is distributed computing, and with the tsunami of open source adoption of AI. Just look at Hugging Face and all the repos, and then look at the OpenClaw revolution. Everybody under the age of 30 is doing OpenClaw, smoking, I call smoking OpenClaw. But everyone that's got any kind of builder mentality sees what that is. Now that's a little Wild West right now, but it is a tell sign of what's coming, which means that anyone can be a developer in a way that could be productive. That's going to be done in the open. This is a big deal.
Yeah, so I think that what really matters for the acceleration of standards is the ability to have open standards, building it on top of an open source foundation where you're actually, all of your components, your databases, in our case, a graph database, the agent frameworks you're building on top of, they're all open source and an open source platform. And one of the other things which I help out with is I'm the program chair for the OpenAI and Data Track at Open Source Summit. And we care a lot about curating and raising the level of open source in the AI ecosystem. So our kickoff talk for the track is Arnaud Lehors at IBM, who's going to be talking about the Model Openness Framework, or MOF. And that's a great way that you can look at your models and figure out how open they really are despite the vendor claims. So actually getting analytics and information about openness of standards, and then just up-leveling people's understanding of using open source projects. So Lynn Sum from Solid.io is going to give an MCP, kind of like up-level and upskilling for attendees. We have a great session from our friends at IBM. We're going to talk about BAI and a whole bunch of the new projects they've contributed to the LFIA and the Data Foundation. And I think if you look at all the set of relevant AI open source and standards, it's either part of LFIA and Data, or the Agentic AI Foundation, which is what we're here for, or independent foundations, which are also under the Linux Foundation umbrella. So they pulled together all of these different open source AI ecosystems under one big umbrella.
Yeah, when I wrote a post to cover the KubeCon EU in Amsterdam a couple weeks ago, which is the flagship Cloud Native conference, my opening line was, Cloud Native, meet AI Native. Because you almost had parallel things and now they come together. They're not mutually exclusive, they build on each other, but they're also bringing in a new demographic or vendor and end user. Stephen, talk about this dynamic, because I know of companies that are joining the Agentic AI Foundation that aren't participating in cloud native because they're not really a cloud native player, but they're using cloud native. So you have a new layer of persona. And then there's also an overlap of the cloud native players that are also in the AI native infrastructure. So you have this new kind of DevOps-like feel, same kind of language, builders, developers, operations, because there's a lot of operational impact if tokens are going to be part of a workforce. That's an HR issue. You got finance. So you have this new culture. Speak to that, because you've seen both sides of CNCF and now on the AI side. Talk about those kinds of companies. You mentioned data. What makes this new layer? Who should be in this foundation? Who should participate? Your opinion?
So like if you look at it from a company perspective, so a couple of years ago, like AI was new. It was startups. It was even at big companies. It was skunkworks projects for building AI agents, and now we're getting to the time when people are going into production with AI. So if you want to have a secure system, if you want it to be something you can maintain going forward and you're not locked into proprietary standards, if you want to build something that you can actually um, um, take care of the technical debt on going forward, the best framework for that is open standards, is building it on top of existing cloud native architecture. So this is why, for example, NVIDIA had a big announcement at KubeCon where they're contributing a project to the CNCF. Also, you see a lot of big companies investing and putting their own open source projects into foundations. And DevOps people, now it's their job to maintain, deploy, and run models and agent frameworks and all of these things in production for their companies. So I think you see a convergence of this kind of historical cloud native DevOps community, which I've been a part of for a long time. I was on the CNCF board. And also the new kids on the block, all of the AI startups, the AI companies, folks who are building applications, and now they're also looking at upskilling to deployment and then getting things into foundations and more secure and rigorous structures. And this is where standards like I mentioned, the Model Openness Framework, model security standards, data openness frameworks come in because now you need it to be auditable, you need it to be production ready. And this is also something which we do a lot of at Neo4j with graph databases, because we have a lot of companies in pharmaceutical and financial and supply chain who they have curated data sets. They're ready, they're AI ready to go into production on things, and you need a strong foundation on open source technology to accomplish that.
I love the standards angle. If you look at the cloud native movement, which we've been part of, we were there before KubeCon even happened. I remember the day Lou Tuck and I were having a beer at an OpenStack event, and that's Kubernetes thing could be big. Okay, fast forward, cloud happened. We saw Amazon rise to the scene and everything else that played out. The first adopters were startups. Why? Because what's the choice? Buy a server, put it in a rack, or just put your credit card down, go to the cloud. Great, check. That whole SaaS revolution was born. And then security. Once AWS nailed security, once CNCF nailed some of these operational hardened things, the enterprise comes on board. Same movies playing out here in the AI native. Startups come in, they get some escape velocity. Why? Because it's a great environment, clean sheet of paper. You're like, go AI native, born in AI. But the enterprise adoption, you mentioned security. Talk about this, because this to me is a threshold. This is where the focus on standards, compliance, governance. Agents can't be running around. OpenClaw, certainly, I love the OpenClaw phenomenon, but it can go off the rails pretty quickly. Hence NVIDIA with OpenShell. Smart move, smart play by NVIDIA, but that you have to nail security now.
Exactly. So I mean, like, speaking of OpenClaw, a lot of people are doing amazing things with it on a personal level, on personal data sets, but they're huge security exploits. It's kind of an unmanageable Python monstrosity of a code base, and the data structure is a bunch of markup files, which you're kind of storing and managing all your data in. So even there, you see an evolution towards things like Zero Claw or Iron Claw, which are basically redesigned in languages which are verifiable for security, like Rust, where you actually are storing things inside of proper data tiers. So using graph databases or actual technology where you can group and find relationships. And then cloud native abstractions on top of that, we're using WASM and other front-end technologies to secure the endpoints which you're exposing to the world. And I think for companies, you don't have the luxury of just kind of throwing a prototype like Ironclaw out to the world, because you have actual real data which you need to protect. You have customers, you
Credentials.
have, exactly, a lot of exposed risk. So using AI technology and directly exposing to your customers is very risky today. But by taking advantage of a lot of the technologies to put more guardrails in place, to have more oversight, to have like agents in agentic frameworks checking each other, now you can actually do things in a more secure fashion and build structures which you can support, and you can validate all the way down to the model framework, because you know what the inputs, how the models are trained, and you can actually validate all this.
As developers start to get in here, you're going to see some opportunities come up. Obviously, new brands will emerge. Always happens in these big shifts. But there's a lot of lessons in CNCF that was learned. Not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, but you can iterate and evolve very quickly. You can redesign, you can get a position. It might not be optimal, but the community iterates. Where do you expect to see the Agentic AI Foundation doing its work out of the gate? Take me through your mind's eye around the velocity, and then things that will emerge, and what you might think is a good feature, not a bug.
Yeah, so like I think one of the things which made the CNCF and the cloud native community great was this philosophy of letting 1,000 flowers bloom. So taking a lot of projects, give them the opportunity, give them a sandbox that they can try things out and they can grow into. And not all of the projects get to incubating, get to graduated, but this gives you a larger and better ecosystem, because now you have not one, for example, agent framework, but you can have dozens of them competing with each other and improving and getting best practices. So I think the opportunity for the Agentic AI Foundation and for the LFAI and Data Foundation is to increase their openness, take in a larger suite of projects and companies and technologies under their umbrella, and give that kind of fertile ground so they can grow, and the winners become part of an open ecosystem. And I think that the CNCF and the Analytics Foundation has a great history of doing this.
Yeah.
They understand how communities work. They're really good at building and supporting and curating communities. And this is the future of AI technology if it's done effectively.
You know, agents, I love the commentary on agents, because I do love the fact that they're being viewed as workers. There's even like departments that says, here's your token budget. Also, here's your agent direct reports. So if they're technically workers, the number of agents coming into this ecosystem will be significant. So I want to get your commentary on agents as participants, which we've never seen before. So I think it's going to happen. And then two, the role of ecosystem partners, because APIs are great, but now you've got delegation and trust. So agents have to kind of have a handshake or a secret code or mechanism for pure trust, because you've got transactional things going down. Could be code, could be payments. The Linux Foundation just announced a payment system. So you're going to have a whole different kind of connected relationship.
Yeah.
So it's a whole nother history. So take it through. Agents as participants in the community, which is a little bit out there, and then also the role of agents.
Yeah, so let me give a concrete example of something which has been a controversy in the Kubernetes community, and I think this is a good way of framing and thinking about how agents play into ecosystems and communities. So a lot of people have been contributing stuff, and PRs and code changes where it basically says, I made this change co-authored with Claude. And so if I'm a developer and I submit a PR, but my co-author is Claude, who's accountable?
Yeah.
Who's responsible and is going to stand behind the changes and the fixes which you made? So obviously the agent's not. The agent, it doesn't have a memory, it doesn't have a personality, it's capable, but only when directed and instructed in the right ways. Yeah. So it's the human who's accountable and responsible, but it's a human with a lot more capabilities, with a lot more tools at their disposal to actually participate and be an effective contributor. So I think where this ends up norming is, at the end of the day, and this is going to sound very old-fashioned, us humans we're the community,
We're in
the
charge.
relationship, but we are more capable, more empowered humans who have a lot of agents and tools at our disposal where we can be more efficient, accomplish more, give better feedback, be better community members because we can summarize and evaluate and do a larger body of work. And so
Yeah.
I think the opportunity for people who want to get involved in Agentic AI Foundation or
Yeah.
LFI and Data or other groups like this is be that community representative as a human, be that touch point,
Yeah.
but then make really good use of AI tools to broaden the purview.
I don't
and the
think that's a
perspective
radical
of
view,
what
and
you
I
can-
mean I don't think that's old-fashioned, Stephen, because like it's like common sense. If I'm a subordinate to you, you're my manager. You're responsible for me. If I'm if I screw up, well, I get fired. But it also rolls. You're accountable, so it comes down to agency, and
Yeah.
I think that to me is a first principle. That makes a lot of sense. Is there a policy now? Is it like, what's the view on what's been the controversy in the Kubernetes community?
That's a good question. Can an agent legally submit a PR and stand behind that?
Anthropic would say no.
They can't sign a contributor agreement.
Not yet. Okay, talk about the trust piece, because again, I love APIs and the AI stacks coming on. VMs are kind of becoming more situational for isolation, less of a platform. So you got APIs, which means containers are going to be super relevant. But you got trust. I mean, agents need to cross boundaries and work with other agents. We're seeing that. We saw that at RSA big time this year, last week, where there's a lot of bad agents, bad actor agents spawning out there. So you're going to have this army of agents, an internet of agents, as the foundation talks about it. You got to have a management layer in there. You got to have trust, delegation of trust.
I think this is an area where the technology, like AI technology, is evolving so quickly that you're always going to have cases where bad actors will find ways to exploit getting to the system prompt, or finding architectural flaws in how the agents are working, or find other API loopholes and things which are being deployed. And this increases the need for better security postures, for quick responses to CVEs, all of the really strong security practices, which the OpenSSF, the Open Source Security Foundation, is already on top of in terms of like how you mitigate and how you work on security exploits in the AI age. And you have to realize that the bad actors, of course, they are going to be using AI tools to find security exploits, to find loopholes, to try to poke holes at your deployment systems. And you also need to be using AI tools on the defense front to harden your systems, to find security issues, to go through and look for potential security exploits in your code. And there's a lot of tools available to do that, which will improve the quality of PR reviews for code that are coming in, which will do fuzzing logic to find potential security issues. And if you're not using AI as part of your security strategy, you are heavily exposed to bad actors, which are.
Yeah, you got to arm up. The other thing that's interesting is that the Linux Foundation and all the projects will benefit from agents too, because there's some efficiencies there. That's an unlock for the productivity of the community. I mean, when you settle that first principle of humans being accountable for their agents, that's an easy one I think people will align with. But in general, there's a ton of corpus of code. That's an efficiency opportunity. What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that one of the real capabilities of AI coding agents is you can more easily than ever jump into a large code base that you're not familiar with and make meaningful contributions. And actually, in my evenings and weekends, I've been doing more contributions to open source projects, because with my busy speaking, travel schedule, team management, it's hard to do that. But now I don't need to spend a couple of weeks doing a PR. I can do it on a weekend.
You're highly productive.
And that's on projects where I'm not that familiar with the code base, because now I have these AI assistive tools to do it. So I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of people who previously there were barriers to contributing to large open source projects to now dive in, understand the code base with the help of AI tools, find things they're passionate about that they want to contribute, make PRs, and improve.
Yeah.
And this unlocks the gates for independent people, for people who are working for their company, which small bug fixes and upstream open source projects would be huge contributions, and will hopefully be a boon to open source because there's fewer barriers to contributing.
I was talking to a friend, and we're both kind of the same age group, and old guys in the industry. I was talking with Chris about this earlier. In 1991, when Linux was founded, that was our question. I was like in my late 20s, and TCP/IP was a big deal. That was the systems revolution. Again, open source grew from there. A lot of young and experienced people are coming together because of the time unlock. So you're seeing people who have been there, done that, coming in like yourself, bringing expertise and intellect to very focused pieces because the barriers to get into your point.
Yeah.
So you're seeing kind of a collision. And I don't see a negative collision at all. I see a great synergy between young and old in this systems revolution, senior industry players with young up and coming entrepreneurs and coders kind of working together. I mean, it's almost magical at some level, but I see no blowback. Oh, you're the old guy. I just see, because they're bringing expertise with no barriers.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. And, I think, I'm at a lot of hackathons in San Francisco, and you see both experienced people coming in with amazing ideas and like the ability to implement them quickly, but also young people who like just are amazing with AI tools. Now, one thing I would say is a gap, and both a concern, but also something I'm personally passionate about fixing, is basically companies are not hiring as many junior engineers. And I think you could qualify that further, and you could say companies are not hiring as many junior engineers who don't know how to use AI tools, right? So we have a lot of students graduating from college who they know Python, they know JavaScript, they know, Java, Go, whatever, but they don't know how to use Cursor or Claude Code, or like they're not fluent with prompting and tooling, and therefore they're not hireable. And this isn't a failing of our students. This is a failing of our education system, where it's not keeping up with the latest AI trends, which people need to learn. And they're graduating a generation of developers who are not what enterprises need today.
Yeah,
and so like when you go to hackathons and you see the young people who are successful, those are the people who are fluent in AI tools and prompting. They're technical, they understand what they're doing, but they're very good at the tool usage. We need to get to the same level with our education where we're training people on using AI tools to be highly effective.
I totally agree. I 100% back you on that, because it really is a slow versus speed game. It's not so much what they know, it's what they can do fast. All right, final question. Neo4j has had great success. Congratulations to the team. Graph databases, you have a lot of customers that are in production. You have a lot of companies that are going into production at scale. How are you guys seeing the AI tooling in your customer base? How are you guys thinking about it as a company? And what's the message to your customer base there, because you're on the front lines?
Yeah, so I think getting to kind of your earlier assessment of like where the architecture, where the ecosystem is, I think a lot of people started out with this idea, well, I have all this data, I'm going to throw it at the AI, I'm going to stick it in a vector database, and then the AI will figure it out and give me good results. And that's proven to not be true for a bunch of reasons. What you really need is you need back-end systems and databases and data models, which work really well with AI, which are designed for the new generation of AI. And GraphRag is a good example of this, where it's RAG, but it's actually graph retrieval, right? So you're getting relationships, you're using data science algorithms like the Louvain algorithm for clustering things together, and it puts more intelligence that your AI can use. And this year in 2026, I think the big light bulb went off with the VC community. Jayed Ashu had a great post from Foundation Capital about the $3 billion opportunity for context graphs. And basically what they realized is that the reason why agents can't be successful is because they don't have the right context. They're so split on different data sources, on like all this tribal knowledge.
Yeah.
And if you can bring those together and actually give agents full knowledge of the entire system, you get better decisions, you get better outcomes, so you can actually build AI tools which can start to meet that requirement to get in production, to pass security reviews, and to actually replace some of the low-end jobs which are more mundane.
Awesome. Stephen, thanks for coming in. Great to see you as always. A pleasure. CUBE alumni. Breaking it down, he's been on both sides of the table, cloud native and AI native. This is the connection. It's the fusion between those two worlds coming together. And now with the foundation in place, we're expecting to see a mass acceleration of AI native activity, both at the infrastructure, DevOps, SecOps levels, as well as the agentic layer. And of course, the unlimited opportunity for entrepreneurs and inventors and innovators to create great software systems. We're doing our part here in theCUBE, here at a special event in New York City, MCP Dev Summit. Thanks for watching.